Guess who got brands talking? Brandlive.co.za.
Hello and welcome to Creative Ghettos, the show that explores various creative industries and profiles the Africans who push them forward. Each week, I will spend 30 minutes unveiling excellent and exciting progress within creative industries, including, but not limited to, visual art, architecture, design, food, film, and publishing. My name is Kwanele. Thank you so much for joining me right here on brandlive.co.za. Today, I speak to the project manager of It Has to Be Jazz, Tshepo Maseko. Now, every week when I introduce my guest, I do it in the most explanatory way. But this week, I was literally just caught off guard. Because I explore a subject which I promised Creative Ghettos would never, ever, 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 ever touch. I promised, I took an oath to never touch the music industry. In the same breath, what It Has to Be Jazz has done and is doing is pretty remarkable. So what you're going to hear today is only fitting for the show. Tshepo.
Thank you for that introduction.
Welcome to Creative Ghetto.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Now, Tshepo, you're going to have to explain yourself. And I know it's going to be good. The explanation is going to be good as to why it is that you're here, right?
Yes.
You are an unrelentless worker. You just never stop. I think you're the one. You're like P. Diddy here in this country. You just never stop. You keep going. What is it that keeps you awake for 48 hours and asleep for just 30 minutes? What do you do for It Has to Be Jazz?
For It Has to Be Jazz. Well, what keeps me going is a clear vision. One, I have to point that out. I know exactly what I want to achieve, and I know what it takes to achieve what I'm trying to achieve. I'm repeating myself, but what keeps me going is the clear vision and what I want to achieve for everybody else, not just for myself personally. I'm a very driven person in the sense of once I want something, I won't stop until I get it. I've always been like that. So it's always been through a process of notching it up. And then that's led to 3 hours of sleep at night. But I'm getting good at sleeping now, so I'm thankful for that.
And what is it? What is it that you're doing for It Has to Be? So tell me about what It Has to Be Jazz. Tell me about It Has to Be Jazz and what it is that you do for it.
Okay, It Has to Be Jazz is a project that started, it was a gift from my father to myself. Mm-hmm. So it Has to Be Jazz as a concept has been around for quite some time, but it never got started. So what I do, and the way it got handed to me is I was just going through a bad time in my life. Everyone has their
we all do.
Everyone has it. So
young people, it's the story of our lives.
Yes. And then my father just saw that it was an opportunity for me to just settle up, take charge of my life, start my own company, and just run this project. And that's how It Has to Be Jazz started. Now, what is It Has to Be Jazz? Initially, it started as a music thing, as in gathering young composers and recording albums. I think in the space of 36 hours, Dad was like, you know what, there's this concept I've been thinking about for years. I want you to call artists who've never worked with each other before, get them into the studio and record them for an hour. Whatever happens, happens. Because that's what jazz is. It's improvisation, just capturing the moment and then having a feeling. And then I have a background. I have a degree in marketing management, so obviously the brain started ticking in that way. I was like, "Oh man, this is a great concept, man. We can sell it this way. We can do it that way." I'm also professionally a sound engineer as well, so
that helps.
It helps a lot in terms of okay, what sound am I looking for when we're recording the albums? But that kind of went out of the window when we didn't know what we were going to be recording. We just knew It Has to Be Jazz.
Yeah,
that's how the name came about, actually. Of It Has to Be
Jazz. Okay. I get it now, because I always thought, that name is very left of center.
Yeah, so we were saying we must just get the youth, and we could, as long as it's jazz, it has to be jazz. It has to be jazz. And that's how the name came about, and the name stuck. So in the space of 36 hours, the concept was explained. We called Mbongani Kosinatinglubi, he's a bassist, because we've known him for quite some time. And we told him, listen, invite 2 other artists you've never worked with, meet us in studio, and we're just going to freestyle an album, see what happens. And then the next day, we were in studio, we recorded an album.
Cool.
In a space, spontaneous combustion.
That's my favorite. I just want to.
The first album. It has to be
Yeah.
just spontaneous combustion. That was the first album, and then from there, like in that space, we bounced the album. I took it home. I spent the rest of the afternoon mastering it. And by the way, we don't mix the albums. We try to leave it as authentic as possible. All we do is just master it, just to make it clearer, so you can hear exactly what's going on. And so in the space of 36 hours, from concept to planning to kicking it off and actually doing it, it was 36 hours. We had our first album, and that's how it has to be just started as the music component.
When looking for musicians who can collaborate on a project,
Yes.
What are the specific things do you look for? Do you always have an end vision in mind in terms of the types of musicians that you want to have on a record?
Well, we always have an idea of what we want to record. As you know, we've recorded 10 albums, and each album has its own title, and it's actually the theme for that specific album. So hence, it has to be just spontaneous combustion. It happens so quickly, like, what's going on? You know. The next album is Horn of Africa. It's called Horn of Africa because we got Malcolm Gianni, and he was blowing the trumpet. So
The list is just enviable.
like it's a very, very, very long list. But to answer your question, there's two ways that we figure out who we want to record. One, it's we get an idea of what we haven't done before, like in terms of instrument combinations.
Yeah.
So last album, Full Circle, which we're launching on the 23rd, has a guitar, which we haven't had before, saxophone, bass, and drums. And we just knew we wanted that, but the artist specifically, we didn't know. But luckily, we came up with the concept called Jazz Select. Within it has to be jazz, and the whole purpose of Jazz Select is like passing on the goodwill. So after we record you, we ask you, okay, who do you think is worthy, and is at a skill level that you think is acceptable? It has to be jazz, because we have a very high standard. Because when you're trying to prove a point, you have to be like, no, we just don't record anyone. You know, like we're showing that the youth is actually very capable of doing amazing things. And
When you say youth, define youth, because a lot of the time when we think of youth, we think of age. I mean, I think that's very, but some people are, I mean, you know, some people don't consider themselves to be part of the youth after 30 or 32. So what type of age groups are you looking at?
a lot of the people we've worked with are under 30, but we go with the legal youth, which is 35 and under.
Is that the legal youth?
The legal youth in South Africa is 18 to 35.
Ah.
So we go with that.
Okay.
So we're just trying to prove the point that the youth is actually very capable of doing anything.
Yeah.
And then from not just the music component, remember I did say the marketing aspect kicked in my head. There was a lot of other components that were needed to make this album a whole.
Okay.
It wasn't just, it's not, when you record an album, there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just music. And that's where we're like, no, it has to be jazz. It's actually a lot more about music. It's a lot more about just making like youth composers and all that type of stuff. We then went into graphics because of the album cover. So now we work with graphics designers under the It Has to Be Jazz flagship.
Yeah.
And now we work with...
Because sorry to interrupt you, but your album covers are just so well done. In fact, I was looking through some of them and I was just thinking, I wonder if they got like professional artists to be part of designing them.
Yes, we did. Because once again, it was important that it shouldn't just be limited to music. It must be anyone in the art space and anyone who can contribute. We'll gladly accommodate them to make sure that they have the relevant exposure, and we'll also pay them to be a part of the project, because at the end of the day, we're trying to foster a whole, let's build our own almost ecosystem of supporting each other, paying for each other's services, not this whole thing of, nah, do me a favor, I'll get you back later type of thing. So,
and talking about paying for services, because the idea behind being a musician or being a creative is that making money is basically the toughest thing ever. How do you teach or share lessons with the people that you work with on how to level up the career so that you're making money that is not just for now but for the long term?
Okay. Thank you. That's a very good point that you have brought up, and let me explain it this way. It Has to Be Jazz falls under my company called Elephant Maseko. Elephant Maseko is my company. I'm the CEO of that. And then under Elephant Maseko is It Has to Be Jazz. So it's actually a project of my company.
Okay.
That's how it works. So because I have the business background and all that type of stuff, when I work with someone within It Has to Be Jazz, I give them opportunities to almost like branch off It Has to Be Jazz and do something for themselves.
Okay.
So with the artists, once we finish recording, they get to keep 100% royalties. We just keep the master so we can make the CD, reprint it, sell it, make money so we can keep the project going, so on and so forth. So then we tell them it's their responsibility. It's in the contract. It's your responsibility to register the song. We'll give you the ISRC code and all that type of stuff, but go and register the song. So when It Has to Be Jazz gets to the level where the music is playing everywhere, you can collect royalties. Think long term.
Yes.
Short term, we give them the CD at our cost. So we don't give them a retail price. We like, okay, this is the price that we're going to give it to you. You can mark it up as much as you want. So at least you have something to sell now and make money now. So we're teaching them how to market themselves. We're teaching them how to like just branch out and have another avenue of making income.
And income.
It can even become passive income in the long run.
And also with, having your music being played or their music being played everywhere, I know that your reach spreads to Botswana and I think Namibia. I'm not too sure about that.
It has been to Namibia, yes.
Is it? Okay.
Yes,
And Namibia, who are some of the musicians or artists? I know you've worked with poets from Botswana.
Yes.
Who are some of the other artists and are they all musicians? What else do they do?
Okay, the different artists that we work with, well, the countries that we've covered, we've recently covered Congo, DRC. We've done Malawi. We've done Botswana, Zimbabwe. We've featured artists from Zimbabwe. The different types of artists that we featured. We have writers. There's a lady who wrote for us, Nina Tladi, the lady with the typewriter. She wrote a write up, a write up of what her how do I say it? What she got out of watching the documentary, because she's going to be, we've given her opportunity to MC because that's what she wants to do. So at the Botswana event, she'll be MCing the whole event because that's what she wants to do. So it's another way of showing that It Has to Be Jazz. It's not just about music. We're helping a writer achieve her dreams through public speaking, through writing the press release, through doing the write-up, which we're going to eventually put on the DVD. So every time you open the DVD, you're going to read her work. Her name is going to be there. You're going to see who she is and all that type of stuff.
So at the end of the day, you could say that not Creative Ghetto, sorry. It Has to Be Jazz almost offers creatives an opportunity to be very vast in the way that they think about their product so that they can actually find a way of incorporating it with what it is that you do.
Thank you.
That is excellent. Okay, on that note, we're just going to take a really short break and I'll have more with the jazz legend in the making in his own right.
Okay.
Tshepo Maseko.
In your face, all over the place. We're online 24/7. 24/7. You're listening to the hottest internet station.
Brand Live.
No doubt.
Have you ever thought about the power of social media? Social media has the power to make your business grow. Grow! Why don't you let us manage your social media? Because our business is to see your business grow. Visit us at www.bstownmedia.co.za.
You're listening to brandlive.co.za.
Welcome back to Creative Ghettos. I'm still speaking to Tshepo Maseko, project manager for It Has to Be Jazz. Now, before the break, we were speaking about how various creatives have an opportunity of getting involved with It Has to Be Jazz in order to elevate their careers and the many aspects that they can think of. I want to know, because you were telling me also about poetry and writing, and I know you do fashion design. How on earth, how does that happen? How do you get the fashion design thing part of that? Like, I just want to clarify, because if I'm a fashion designer and there's an opportunity for me to do something with you, I want in.
Okay, well, once again, I always refer back to the marketing aspect. It Has to Be Jazz, I'm growing it to be a symbol of what is possible by the youth. That's what I'm focusing on right now with It Has to Be Jazz. So it doesn't matter if you're a musician, doesn't matter if you're a fashion designer, it doesn't matter what you are. If you are creative and you want to express yourself, It Has to Be Jazz is exactly for you. But it's also challenging. I don't want to make it easy for everyone, because then everyone's just going to be like throwing in their 2 cents and all that type of stuff. So as a fashion designer, as long as it's black and white, we're good to go.
I like that. I
Yeah.
like that concept though.
Yeah, as long as it's black and white, we're good to go, because that's the theme of it.
Yeah,
Everything
yeah.
we do is black and white. The videos are black and white. The album covers are black and white. Everything is just black and white. So if you can design something black and white, put the logo on it, let's work.
Okay,
That's what-
it's just dawning on me now. I feel like I was so slow. Okay, so and then again, why was it important for you to focus on these industries that are outside of jazz?
Well, it was important to me because I didn't want to give people a chance to give me an excuse. I personally
Wow.
don't like excuses.
Okay.
If you want to succeed in life, there should not be an excuse at all. So I didn't want to give you a chance to be like, no, but I'm a fashion designer. It Has to Be Jazz doesn't do that. I didn't want to give you a chance to, I want you to be accountable. I take 100% responsibility for everything in my company. I take 100% responsibility for everything, good and bad.
Yeah.
And as a CEO, unfortunately, sometimes entrepreneurship has been glamorized in a sense of like it's easy, it's
True.
fun, this is this cool thing, you know. But then when it's time to get down to the hard work, and you are editing a documentary starting at 6 p.m. and you finish at 7 a.m. the next day, and you still have to go to an 8 a.m. meeting, a lot of people don't talk about that kind of stuff. And I just want people to start seeing that, and I want people to start knowing that, you know, it's actually a lot of hard work, but it pays off at the end of the day.
And also to take initiative.
Take initiative.
Yeah,
exactly.
take initiative with your craft, and see where it is that you can slot
Exactly.
your ideas in. And how can artists interested in getting involved with It Has to Be Jazz go about applying or getting a hold of you?
My email is tshepo@ithastobejazz.
Just like that.
Just like that. No, I said I don't want people to give me excuses. I don't want people to give me excuses.
Okay, so let's say it again.
Tshepo@ithastobejazz, one word, .co.za.
Great.
You
So
can
if
send
you're
me
an
an email.
artist, whatever it is that you do, especially jazz, I think, definitely email Tshepo and see what it is that you can get involved with It Has to Be Jazz. Now, going back to the music, which is our
Yes.
favorite part.
Yes.
Next week, Friday, is a special date.
Yes.
It Has to Be Jazz will be hosting something at the JNB Hive.
Yes.
What can people expect from next week's show?
Okay.
What is it all about? What's the concept? I know you always have these.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Yes. Well, next week, Friday, 23rd of February at JMB Hive, 6 for 6:30, we are going to be launching our documentary, which is going to be showing you everything that we've done from September 2016 to date, which is 10 albums, 2 books, publishing 5 books in the next 2 months, and well, a documentary as well, which is included in that.
So you've done this only in a year, basically,
Yeah, a year
in
and
the
a
space
bit.
of a year and a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, that is
Yeah.
insane.
No, if you want something, just go get it. It's
Okay.
easy.
Now, I just have a few more questions about your influences, right?
Yes.
Your father.
Yes.
How much of an influence? So your father is Raymond Maseko, who founded It Has to Be Jazz.
Papa Elephant, yes.
Yeah, Papa Elephant.
Yes.
Oh. How much of an influence has he played in your life in terms of, your drive? I think from the music side, it's pretty obvious,
Yeah.
but just, your drive and your focus and also, getting you to connect with the music so that you're able to even spread it out as much as you've done it.
Well, my father introduced me to business when I was 12. A lot of people don't know that.
Wow.
So I've been doing business since I was 12, but like low key, running the family accounts. If something happens with anything, I'll be the one. They'll ask me questions. I won't necessarily be the one responsible for signing anything, but they'll ask me, what do you think you should do? So it's been like slowly introduced to me from a very young age, and he's been feeding me the knowledge as often as I can. And he's afforded me opportunities to fail.
which is great. From a young age is
from
great.
a very young age. You know, I've been through plenty, like anyone else would have been. But like, fortunately enough, through all those things that I've went through, he's always given me the leadership of, no, what should we do?
Yeah.
And if I get stuck, he'll give me advice, and he's like, okay, cool. And he's always pushed me, you know, and it's reached a point where it's less pushing and me pulling, kind of thing. So it was a transition over time. So he's been a very good mentor and a very good, how do I say, a leader by example.
Okay.
Yeah. So he doesn't just talk about it; he actually does it, which was a very important thing. I think it's a very key thing, because I think I'm like that as well. I don't just talk. I can prove everything that I've done. You know, if I say I'm going to do something, best believe
it's going to be done.
It's already going to be done.
And was he linked to perhaps some of the artists that you first started working with? Did that make it easier for you to? I mean, what's his background? I know he's not here right now, but like, what's his background? How?
What does my father do?
Yeah. So that, because you know, you guys do have it seems to me anyways, that you have a lot of clout within your knowledge and just interaction with the jazz space. So I would like to know, how did he connect you with other people?
Well, he's known some of the jazz musicians, like Bongani. We met him in Australia. We used to live in Australia. We met him there by sheer coincidence. Malcolm Gianni, we met at the Music Academy of Gauteng, and then the relationship grew from there. We did some gigs with him around town and all that type of stuff, and we just grew from there. So he connected me from there, and then from there I started to do the research, and that's where Jazz Select came from as well, in terms of asking for references and all that stuff. So in the sense of jazz, he's been a jazz guy all his life.
Okay, so he's just like a music lover.
He's a music lover. He's the type of guy, if you play a jazz song from like 1976, he'll tell you the title. He'll tell you who composed it. He'll even tell you what the album cover looks like. You know, he'll give you the full breakdown of the details of the song. In terms of what does he do, that's a very difficult answer.
Okay. You don't have to answer. You don't have to answer at all. Yeah. Okay, now, just one more thing. Yes. What are some of the key things that you wanted Has to Be Jazz to accomplish globally? Not just globally. In Africa. I know Africa, you are doing it. So, globally. Globally,
it's actually written in my diary. 2025, It Has to Be Jazz will be a home name, or a household name, in the sense that we will have recorded an artist from every country on this planet. As in, one day we'll have a festival, a drummer from Hong Kong will come in, and they will meet up with a bassist from Argentina, and the bassist from Argentina will meet up with someone from Egypt, and then there'll be a singer from South Africa. They meet on stage for the first time. Whatever happens, happens.
And that for me is just exactly why I created Creative Ghettos.
Yes.
To be expansive and to bring it all into one spot.
Yes.
Tshepo, unfortunately, that brings us right to the end of our show. I know it was very short,
it was extremely short,
I know 30 minutes goes by very quickly. But thank you for stepping in today. For the listeners, make sure to get your friends or family together and go see the New Generation documentary preview screening, as well as some fantastic live music at the J&B Hive in Braamfontein, Johannesburg on Friday, the 23rd of February. To find out more about the Africans who drive various creative industries forward, make sure to follow Creative Ghettos on Instagram at Creative Ghettos. My name is Kwanele. Join me again next week, Friday from 2 to 2:30 p.m. for another impactful show. Bye for now.
Guess who got brands talking? Brandlive.co.za. You're listening to brandlive.co.za.